All right, what's up, everybody? Matt Kelly, Matty Riser, Wrestle Matt's another edition. Good sir, Matty Riser, how we doing tonight, buddy?
Whoa, baby, I am ready for this. As Mick Foley would say in the 90s, bang, bang, let's get it.
Yes,
I'm
sir.
hyped.
Good old Mick is actually doing his I think it's like 25 or is it 30 years of Foley? Maybe it's even 40 years of Foley, something like that. But he's doing the one man tour, and it's coming around to Charlotte. I've had the good fortune of going to one of his shows. I don't know if you've done that, Matty, but he does a meet and greet for like everybody in the place too. Super nice guy. Only the best things to say about Mick Foley.
Oh, yeah, he's a hustler, man. He don't quit.
No, not at all, not at all. We are going to be talking WWE Nostalgia tonight, and hopefully you are joining us. I already got a couple of people popping in. Thanks for stopping by and saying hello. We are on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch as we are, or as we at least try to be pretty much every Tuesday night, sometime in between 10 and 10:30 Eastern. If things look different or sound different on my end, that is because one of my sweet neighbors ran over my fiber optic cable, and I am bumming their internet right right now, trying to just get through this show, Maddie. And we are going to be talking WWE nostalgia, just some of the things that we miss about pro wrestling, man.
Oh, absolutely. This is basically what our childhood, what we grew up in. Some people call this the best era of wrestling is the 90s. So it's going to be fun to dive into not just the wrestling part of it, but the other things that came with the WWE experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And before we get to the main event topic of the night, Maddie, let's hit a couple of quick count topics while we are just coming off of Monday Night Raw. Unfortunately, man, one really, really tough part of Monday Night Raw to watch last night, and that was Zoe Stark. She was involved in a triple threat match that was the winner was going on to Money in the Bank with Rhea Ripley and a returning Kairi Sane. Unfortunately, Zoe Stark landed awkwardly. She launched herself off of the top rope. If you've had the fortune or misfortune, rather, of seeing the replay, if you haven't seen it, I would say don't watch it. It is just a nasty, brutal injury there for Zoe Stark. And, man, hopefully she gets back soon. She's in a tough spot because she was in that group, Pure Fusion Collective, with Sonya Deville and Shayna Baszler, and they're both gone. So this was like almost a kind of like a retread for her, like a fresh way of getting back in front of the audience as a singles competitor for the first time in a long time.
Yeah, like you said, she's already had previous knee issues. The one thing that kind of stuck out to me was her social media kind of rant she had on Liv Morgan, what was it, like a month ago, saying the scandally clad like outfits and stuff were taken away from the women's product.
Yeah.
That's the kind of thing that stuck out at her wrestling work. I guess we just really haven't gotten a chance to see it yet.
Yeah, I think that's kind of like how she was trying to maybe rebrand her character, because I know that she targeted Liv with that comment. She targeted a couple of more folks in the women's division with very similar comments, but we never got to see that play out on WWE television. And now it looks like there's a good chance we're maybe not going to get to see it play out for quite some time again. So one more quick topic here, Maddie, before we get into some nostalgia, because we've got Saturday night main event taking place this Saturday. It's going to be over there on NBC. Kind of want to get your take on the card. And I thought originally John Cena and R-Truth, A, was for the title, and B, was going to be the actual main event. And I don't think it's either of those. I don't think it's for the title nor the main event of this show. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, I don't know. There really hasn't been much build to it. So I'm not sure. Maybe it's just, Cena doing R-Truth a favor. To me, you got to, as good as they are with making storylines, just kind of nothing to it, which is weird. And like you said, the title's not even on the line. So to me, it's just kind of meh. But the other matches do look good.
Yeah, I think it's going to be one of those short and sweet cards, like four matches, I think is what's advertised for a Saturday night main event now. And they should just, get all the time that they need on an event like that. So, all right, Maddie, let's jump into our main event topic for this podcast, and we are going to be talking all things WWE nostalgia, or it can be WCW, it can be TNA, it can be ECW, whatever the hell you want it to be, but just pro wrestling nostalgia that we love. And Manny, I'll let you kick things off. What's the first thing that you miss and that you want to talk about here?
Yeah, WWE was just such a big staple of our lives. So I think you can't go wrong without starting off kind of what got us into wrestling. And that is, if you weren't watching it, you were playing it. Video games were such a monumental part of the experience of wrestling. You look at all these games that just came out in the 90s. This has been PlayStation, N64. So much was going down. And you can tell by just the boom, by looking at these video games, how hot wrestling was in the 90s.
I think what I miss most, man, I'm looking first off, I'm looking at all of the covers to these games. Like there's such unique covers going on here. I remember my first game that I think I had out of the ones that are being displayed here might have been WCW NWO Revenge, and I think I played that until my Nintendo 64 probably didn't work anymore. But what I don't know about you, Maddie. I got the new WWE 2K25. It's the first new wrestling game that I have bought in probably 2 or 3 years, I think. Did video games get harder, man?
Yeah.
Or am I just old?
We're old, dude. This is, we
Okay.
used to eat, sleep, breathe wrestling, and now it's just a different time. To me, though, I remember the N64 with the 4 controllers was such a big deal because you could have your buddies play. You weren't just sitting on the bed waiting for your turn. So having 4 of your friends, throwing some mattresses on the ground, having a sleepover was such a fun part of like just the 90s of being 10, being 11-year-old, just playing No Mercy till, 2 in the morning. Just classic, dude.
That's actually a really fun point too. You had like to play video games with your friends, you had to be in person. There was no connecting to the internet. There was no all of this, meet me in the room or whatever and let's go on this adventure and do all these things. Like, you had to physically be in there with somebody, and all your controllers are plugged into the same console, and God forbid somebody steps on a cord or walks in front of the TV, or any of the one controller you got out of the 4 is all wonky. Like you ran into all of that, but that's kind of also what made it a little bit fun, man. All of these games, I loosely remember. You got WCW versus NWO World Tour, WrestleMania 2000, of course, WWF No Mercy. You got WCW versus the World, variations of SmackDown. I think I played loosely all of these, but man, there was one game that WCW made. I think it was just called WCW Thunder, if I remember it right, and it came out on PlayStation. And it might be objectively the worst wrestling video game that was ever made. It was awful.
Well, and that's how I remember Warzone. Warzone was such like that was the thing.
Yeah, it was bad.
That was the only game you had, so you had no choice. You didn't know how bad it was. You're just hyped to have the wrestling game. And then I remember, saving my lunch money to go to a Blockbuster and buy, I think it was No Mercy, and that was the one that changed the game to me. I think it's rated the best wrestling game of all time. Came out in 2000. I think over 2 million households had WWF No Mercy at the time. Just kind of an iconic game in itself, with the creator wrestler, the costumes. Everybody wants to kind of customize a guy. Now that's all every game is customization.
All the rage. Yeah.
Yeah, but this was really the first one that you actually created a guy, got to pick out his gear, change the Rock's outfit. I mean, storylines galore. I mean, just video games in general. We see where they're at today. This was before you could play online gaming. So it just had that authentic feel that you don't get now.
Yeah, and I saw the comment earlier from YouTube that somebody missed the hardcore division, and I think what I miss and what I miss, like kind of in tandem with that, if you will, is that video games had this video game like quality, and that I mean that it looked kind of cartoony in a way, but like in a good way, like the ability to throw people off of like the Titantron, and the way that they would bounce off of the floor, and like, but the match would still keep going, that sort of thing. There was some quality about that part of the video game. And I think 2K25, I haven't fully dug into everything yet, but I do think they are trying to start to bring some of that quality back.
Yeah, because you kind of want that arcade vibe to it. That
Yes.
kind of makes it fun, makes the action a little bit more jam packed. So to me, this was the era of video games, in my opinion. Now you get one game from, but this was Acclaim was pumping out games, THQ was pumping out games. You had multiple systems. Now it's pretty much Xbox or PlayStation. And even in the corner, I didn't even know Celebrity Deathmatch had a video game, but it makes sense.
I think I may have loosely played that thing like 1 or 2 times. It may have been the old, 3-day rental or whatever for a couple of bucks back in the day just to test it out and see how it was. But man, that show was as ridiculous as it was, people talked about it all the time.
Yeah, oh yeah. When you see just by the amount of wrestling games on the screen here, they were pumping out paychecks. They were getting paid nonstop. You're putting out 2-3 wrestling games a year. That's ridiculous.
Yeah. Now it's one, and it's kind of got that Madden effect a little bit, and that sometimes the game isn't different year over year. And I do think just from the little bit that I've played 2K25, it does seem like it's a step overall in the right direction there. So, you want to move on to the next one, Maddie?
Yeah, let's see what we got.
All right, what do you want to talk? Well, we got put it in the old Wayback Machine here. Let's just see what comes up, just for funsies. Signs everywhere. Signs. Oh man, I miss signs so much. They are making a little bit of a comeback, right? As you're watching Raw and SmackDown and the current WWE product. If you compare it to like 2009, 2012, 2000, I mean, dude, nobody was taking. I remember going to live events and being like, I'm the only person in my entire section right now that has a sign. But you look at it here, if you're following us on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, at WrestleMats, or at WrestleMatsPod for Twitch, I mean, it's like every day there's more people that have signs than don't. It's absolutely unbelievable. And I remember it being like the iconic shot when WWE Raw would open. They would just pan, and you would just see signs. Like they're literally just panning signs for as far as the eye can see.
Dude, there's more signs than people, it looks like. Like, that's nuts.
It does. Yeah. Yeah, WWE, Attitude Era signs were absolutely everywhere.
Dude, just seeing the volume, like you said, nowadays, is there even a sign in the crowd if we're lucky, a couple? But this is how, if you got on TV with this sign, that was iconic. Game over. That's what you're talking about to your friends at school the next day. Like, this is such, and it makes, I think it was Road Dogg goes into detail how they had a sign for every part of his entrance to the ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. That's dedication. That's what, 40 people putting together signs. That's just how over this era was in pro wrestling.
Well, and I remember, I mean, signs are definitely starting to pop back up more and more. And I think WWE did something really, really smart. I think it was, I almost want to say WrestleMania. It may have been the Rumble though, but at the airports of one of the locations, they literally had like a sign making station, so people would stop there, be able to make their sign, and have it ready to go to the show. So I thought that was smart and a good way to get them back on WWE television. I also remember that an entire section, especially when Flair was in this like evolution type run in WWE, people would have the woo, but it would be like one guy holding a W and the entire rest of the row, not just a few people, I'm talking the entire rest of the row would all have an O to spell out woo. I mean, I think signs were just way more creative back in the day too.
When they were a lot more vulgar too, like the stuff people would put on these.
Yeah, you can't be doing that these days. They will check, and you will get escorted out for that. Seen it done, but.
And how about this sign girl right here? She's kind of iconic with DX and Austin. Whoop my ass, Austin. Just, I don't know if she was a plant or what, but she definitely took over your TV when they panned to her during the Attitude Era.
Yeah, she's still out there on some internet pages, to say the least.
Hey, all right, man. Let's keep this track going because we've got a lot to do. Let's talk about, you see these signs, you see no cell phones. this is a good one that I didn't even think of really. It's just how simpler things were without your cell phones, without internet. Just everything about this picture screams 90s and just how invested we were with the product.
Yeah, and I'm so glad that you found the picture with the Mean Gene, the 1-900-909-9900. That number is legitimately seared into my brain. Important information that I need, like when I go to the doctor's office, the DMV, not a damn clue. WCW hotline, seared into my brain. Yeah, man, I think the internet, or lack thereof, in the 90s, obviously it started coming around a little bit more in the 90s, but it wasn't the same as what we have today with Twitter, with Facebook, with Instagram, with TikTok, where everybody's reaction is so instantaneous, like that there's not a second to breathe, when you're watching the WWE live product before everybody's forming an opinion. And something that I've done just over like the last probably month or two. Yeah, so I'm glad I'm not the only one with the hotline numbers seared into my brain as some folks are chiming in here on YouTube. But I have just started putting my phone down, man. I'm not on Twitter right now. I occasionally chime in through our Twitter, but I'm not on it. And I think it's made my wrestling enjoyment go way, way up, because I'm literally just taking the product in for me and not worried about anybody else.
Yeah, and I think that's important. We all want the gossip, the dirt, and that's a lot of fun. And it is cool to see replays, but just letting it happen organically and naturally, like there is something to be said about being in the moment. And I think that's where, we've kind of got kind of a blessing in disguise that we were raised during this WWE nostalgia era, because we can set our phones down. A lot of people, maybe the guys that were born late 90s, early 2000s, they didn't experience that. So it's a different mindset, I think. But yeah, like look at this pro wrestling magazine. You stop by anytime there were magazines on the store and you see, is Shawn Michaels leaving the WWF? This is like a 1996 magazine. Hell, I'm going to at least flip through the pages. I might get my parents to buy it. Like, that's a big deal in pro wrestling in the 90s, is those magazines.
Well, I remember PWI was on pretty much every magazine stand, your Walmart, your Kmart, your things of that nature. I remember that WWE had their own magazine there for a hot minute as well. PWI, I think, is still going. I don't know if they're still going in print, but it's funny. I just went the other, like maybe 2 or 3 days ago. I was looking for something for my wife and passed by the magazine section, which the magazine section in my particular Walmart here in Charlotte is tucked back into a corner that, unless you just happen to know where it is, you're not finding that thing. It's not old school, like it's all at the front of the store and in your face and that sort of thing. So shelf space definitely at a premium. And unfortunately, I don't think wrestling, for the most part, unless, somebody happens to end up in People or on ESPN or something like that, like wrestling just isn't at the forefront like that. And I kind of miss it.
Well, and that's how, think about spoilers. Like, we didn't get spoilers.
Right.
That was the biggest part of WCW, was just those surprises. Constantly somebody jumping ship or somebody appearing in a pay-per-view. Nowadays, you don't get that. When a guy is in the airport, at the building, on Twitter, you name it. And it's just or when a contract's up. We had no idea when things are getting popping in the 90s.
Yeah, and I do think I think it's healthy to maybe distance yourself from. I think primarily Twitter is probably the bigger driver of WWE rumors and just pro wrestling rumors in general, because it is so real time and it is so accessible by everything, and it kind of gets to be like a little bit of a group think, right? So like once an idea gets thrown out there, especially if it's by somebody prominent that's been in the rumor mill for quite some time. So I'm going to use the most obvious name, in Dave Meltzer. And this isn't me throwing shade at Dave Meltzer right now, but it's just to say, if Meltzer puts an idea out there, then there's this group of people that really thinks, well, this is the way it has to go. Yeah. And spoiler, Dave Meltzer is not always right. So then when something doesn't go the way that Meltzer said it was going to go, people flip out. And that part I don't get. A, don't you just want to be surprised? Don't you just want to let the product unfold? And B, don't you just want to form your own opinion?
Yeah, agree. Can't agree more. Like it's a different time. But yeah, I mean, rumors are always going to be around. It was it was just a
For sure. For sure.
lot harder to find out the dirt. So yeah, what a icon, and just the America Online. Looking at that right there, like God, slow as molasses, dial up internet. And then when you finally did get to a wrestling site, you know what I remember? Like one of my first things I actually looked on the internet for wrestling wise was when I found
What's that?
out their real names.
Oh yeah.
I was like, oh my God, Shawn Michaels is Sean
Sean
Hickenbottom or something.
Hickenbottom.
I was like,
Yeah, it's
this is
Hickenbottom.
nuts. What the fuck? I was freaking out. But what
You
a
know
cool
where
like experience, you know.
you know where I read his last name for the first time?
Where?
There was a series of TV guides that came out back in the day, and it was like Shawn Michaels was on the front of one, Austin, uh, who else was it? Like Mick Foley, and there was somebody else that was thrown in there. But yeah, that's the first time that I ever remember being like, what the hell?
Yep. Did that
Did you
too.
did you in fact have a good MySpace page, Maddie? Somebody wants to know.
I think
Were you
so.
decked out in wrestling for your MySpace page?
Oh man, probably not. That was like high school. So it was a little taboo to be too hardcore into wrestling when you're trying to pick up girls. But you know, now that I'm married, I can jump back on it. Oh, good
All
times
right,
though, man.
let's jump into our next nostalgia topic, Maddie. What we got?
Let's go ahead and go to t-shirts because merchandise sales were going bananas in the 90s. And just by looking at these shirts up top and just, you know, how iconic they still are. It's crazy.
I definitely had the first three, which is the classic NWO, the red and black NWO, and then the Wolfpack. I was hard into WCW there for a good bit. And I wanted to specifically bring up t-shirts, Maddie. I'm not wearing a wrestling shirt tonight. Typically I am for our pod, but was in a rush to make things happen tonight. So we're going with a classic black hoodie here. But wrestling shirts, for as all the good things that we say about WWE, God damn, they have some awful merchandise. They have some awful shirts right now. And unfortunately, I don't think that partnership with Fanatics is going to make anything better. I've went through the WWE shop, both on location and online, and I don't know, man. There's something about WWE shop that like occasionally they have something, but I don't think the quality is there. I don't think the design is there. I recently picked up a couple of shirts that I really enjoy from Pac Sun, if you can believe it or not. They're carrying some wrestling shirts. And then there's a website called Planet Euphoria that creates some really unique wrestling shirts. So I'll shout out those two places from where I'm rocking wrestling gear right now. But WWE shop is just not really doing it for me.
Well, and even like in the comments, like it's crazy to think Ghostface here with WCW was it. And they weren't even paying their wrestlers for the merchandise sales. And you had the Four Horsemen shirt, the NWO Wolfpack, the DDP shirt, all these like iconic shirts. And wrestlers aren't even getting any revenue off this. Like crazy. The amount of money that WCW was, obviously, we talk about how much they wasted, but how much money they were making at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, I just look specifically now too, and obviously a lot of people are we going to cover nostalgia in the 2020s? Probably at some point. I think we got to get in a little bit deeper, but yeah, we'll talk 2020s, right, Maddie?
Yeah, at some point. But even like the Rey Mysterio masses, like he said, Jesus Christ, all this money that WCW made and didn't make because they just weren't. We'll get to the WCW in a minute, but I think just in merchandise sales, when you think of what WWF did during the Attitude Era, what could have been if they had, you know, I don't know. It's crazy. I did see a stat. I thought, go ahead.
You go ahead.
Well, I was
just going to say. It's that Matt Brain. It's that Matt Brain, man. Go ahead, buddy.
Early 90s revenue for WWE was like 20 million. By 98, just in like t-shirt sales and stuff like that, up to 80 million.
Wow.
So the amount of people we're talking a $60 million jump in merchandise like revenue, because estimated merch sales, that's crazy. $60 million jump from like 91, 92 to 98.
And that's, I'm assuming prices back then were somewhat cheaper than what they are presently. So accounting for, today's prices, I mean, that's an insane jump regardless. But I was just going to say, if you look out, even in a present WWE crowd, how many nostalgia shirts do you still see? How many Austin 316s, NWO shirts, all these classic shirts? Like, those are still a lot of top selling shirts is from these classic figures. And so, like, if Austin shows up in a new city, they'll have like Boston 316 or Charlotte 316 or whatever it is, and those shirts sell. Whereas, man, I remember going through the physical like WrestleMania, WWE World or Access Store or whatever it's called presently, and just thinking like, man, they really were just throwing stuff at the wall. I can't fathom how much merch they end up having after a live event of just stuff that just never sells, and I don't know why they're not just kind of taking an extra minute for the fans, quite honestly. Like, I don't know who their graphic designer is, but it's just not hitting on t-shirts right now, which is why I said for my present wrestling shirts, I can't tell you the last time I physically bought something direct from WWE in terms of a shirt.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. There's a few of those iconic shirts, and that's why somebody like, Jey Uso, very simple. Yeet. That's all it has to say. Top seller, top merchandise seller right there. Yeah. That's sometimes less is more.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you see it in NWO and Austin 316, literally just black and white shirts with letters and words. Like, I mean, it's as simple as it gets. All right, Maddie, we got another, a topic or two? Are we done? Are we out?
Yeah, we got the Monday Night Wars, we got one baby. More. Yeah, this was, to me, this is just the 90s in general. It's crazy that it's just kind of crazy to see from both sides, because you have WWE with this edgier content. That's kind of what helps them win the ratings war. How big of a part the ratings were to wrestling, because everybody's watching cable television. So a Monday Night Raw or a Monday, Nitro was it. That was how you judged how many people were investing in your product. And just everything that goes along with it. From, like I was saying earlier, the surprises of WCW, which helped make it must-watch TV. But to WWE, the Stone Cold Austin, Vince McMahon battle, the Sable, the edgier, risky TV that you would kind of see with South Park and other shows like Howard Stern. It just kind of, it went so well together, just the Monday Night Wars during this time.
So a couple questions, Manny. One, do you think that with the way that wrestling is consumed today, like there's a difference in the energy just in terms of like, so we're talking about Monday Night Wars, right? So you had Nitro and you had Raw on the same night. And for the longest time, it was destination TV. You literally had to be in front of your TV to watch it. I mean, maybe you could put a tape player in the tape deck, right, and record it and then watch it back. But like, if you forgot to set the timer or whatever it was for your TV to record, then you just fucking missed it. Like, that was it.
Right.
And now you can go on Twitter, you can go on YouTube, you can go on any of WWE's socials or AEW socials or whoever it is that you're watching, and you can pretty much fill in the gaps like for yourself, and you don't have to go back and watch the entire show. You can kind of catch up and be up to speed.
Yeah, it's just, I think it was, I wouldn't say it was lightning in a bottle. It was just right place at the right time. Like cable television, everything's evolving slowly. And this was kind of what you had on Monday nights. Even like Ghostface said, Monday Night Football was considering moving to another night because wrestling was that hot on Monday nights. It was a place to be. And you didn't have social media. You didn't have all these other ways. Only way you could find out is you call somebody on the home phone. You know what's going on right now. Turn it on. I mean, dude, so many. And then just WCW, WWE. I just go back to WCW so much during this era because WWE does beat them in the ratings war. They do purchase WCW, but it's just kind of crazy to see how WCW had WWF by the throat and could have easily, knocked these guys out of business. You have a backing like Turner broadcasting, a big syndicate of television. There's just so much that it's just crazy to see how, a different wrestling program just wasn't, I guess, ran by Vince McMahon, and how that was maybe ultimately their spiral,
Yeah, well, I mean, to be fair, it was almost WWE spiral, because I think if Vince was still in charge of things, we would be having a very different conversation today in the way that we view AEW. And I'll go back to that here in just one second. But I wanted to touch on one more thing that you said while you were talking about the Monday Night Wars, and just kind of the content that you were getting, and how it kind of fell into that category with the Howard Sterns, the South Parks, the late night TV sort of vibes, right? Do you think there's a place in today's product? And I'm not saying to go full on back to, bikini matches, or, Austin with the constant finger, or whatever it is, whatever the case may be. But do you think there is a place somewhere within today's wrestling for just some more adult driven content?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the thing. It's a niche. It's a niche audience, but at the same time, for the people like us that grew up in this nostalgia, there are bits and pieces of that we do miss. Obviously, we have evolved as people, but at the same time, it was such a big part of our upbringing, and it's changed just the WWE product. We've only seen little glimpses and pieces of it, but how much better it is just having a little bit of blood, the cussing, just little things that give it that kind of realism that you didn't get during the PG era.
Yeah, and I've even heard a couple of people. Hey Nick, what's going on, bud? I heard a couple of people like Chelsea Green kind of come out and say, like, she kind of likes some Divas elements, and I don't think she was necessarily advocating for going back to like the butterfly title or the dancing segments in the ring. It's not like that, but it's just saying, like, she can be prissy, she can have the outfits, she can look the way that she does, but she can still go out there and be a badass in the ring. And I think there is a healthy mix for that. And it's kind of the same way where I feel like that, kind of a role like that, like, is where they could utilize a talent like Maxine Dupree, who is not ever really going to make it in the ring, but she could draw attention. She could, from like a Dominic Mysterio, you know what I mean, interfere in the match, try to draw his attention away, those kinds of things. It doesn't have to be something so overt and so over the top. It can just be like Dominic's distracted by a pretty girl. You know what I mean? And that, I think that has a place in professional wrestling.
Yeah, I think it's just you've got to figure out that happy medium of what works and what's too much. But I mean, it's by the time you figure it out, wrestling's going to be evolved to another section. So I don't necessarily think like having somebody like a Maxine Dupree, if she has the personality and the look, you could filter her throughout the broadcast and probably get more viewers that way, because people are addicted to eye candy via, Instagram models, everything we've seen with Mandy Rose. I mean, there's definitely an audience for that, and a lot of guys watch wrestling.
Well, I mean, nobody's blind, dude. Like,
yeah, no.
I mean, there are like, but just like, there's clearly attractive people in present day wrestling, and how much of professional wrestling is literally about presentation. Like like everybody is trying to look good, for the most part, and they want to feel like they look good, and there's a difference between like acknowledging that someone looks good and being like creepy about it. You know what I mean? And so
right.
They can skirt that edge, and I think, it would just overall help the product.
Well, and that's kind of piggybacking back off of Zoe Stark's comment about Liv Morgan.
Right.
It's kind of like, what was the point of that? Like, what did that accomplish? I mean, maybe.
Well, I think she was trying to play. Yeah, I think she was trying to play it up as a character. Yeah, I don't think it was like a direct actual attack sort of thing. Like, if you go back through, she's doing that with more people, and I just don't think but I mean, it could play into, so if they go that way, right, then Zoe Stark could kind of be like a modern day right to censor. Like right now, I mean, you don't have that angle as much.
Right. Well, and that's something that's also missed from like wrestling now, is those characters that, it doesn't necessarily have to be a male porn star like Val Venus, but just to have kind of some way to stick out, I think would go a long way for a lot of these talents that are kind of just, walking in mud right now.
Oh, dude, the fact that they haven't. Do you remember way back in the day uh, when somebody would do a Playboy spread and they would do like the cover reveal over the ring, kind of the way they do with the WWE video games? Are you telling me they can't do that with Roman Reigns in Vanity Fair right now? And the women, the women would
Go
love this.
crazy.
Get get that Vanity Fair cover in the ring. Let me ask you one more thing about the Monday Night Wars before we get out of here tonight. So, I know the direct comparison right now for WWE is obviously AEW. They are the second biggest promotion here in North America right now. And for a minute, we did have, I think it was SmackDown in one of their shows. Maybe it was Collision or Dynamite. I can't remember which one was doing it, but it was going head to head with WWE, and or maybe it was just going head to head with NXT for a bit. But AEW is most comparable, and I don't mean this in a bad way, but just from a ratings perspective, just from story driven perspective, it's most comparable to NXT right now. So I don't think that WWE main roster has their WCW right now. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, it's not close.
Yeah. So I mean, I would like to see it get to that place because I think competition just brings out the best, and I think that's why everybody loved the Monday Night War so much, because it was so back and forth. And right now, with everything's literally spread out on every single day of the week, you just don't have that same feel. And people just, I mean, this is just in the ratings. This is purely ratings. This is not me whether I love or hate AEW. The people just aren't buying AEW as much overall.
Yeah, and it's so tough now. It's different, you know. It's WWE is such a different juggernaut than it was in 96, 97. WCW had so much more of a history, whether it was Jim Crockett Promotions first. You had a lot of
Hmm.
homegrown talent like Sting, like Luger, like Flair. You had, you know, territory wrestling that kind of evolved to WCW. And now it's tough because you do have a couple guys, you know, in the AEW range that everybody wants those dream matches. I just don't know. I don't know how you position it now. Whether not a knock on AEW, but they do have a little bit of originality, but it's also like it's just
Hmm.
different. I don't know. I can't really explain it.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm in that boat, and I'll catch AEW here and there. And this isn't me not liking AEW or liking AEW. This is just literally time in the week in my schedule, and obviously our show and what it's dedicated towards, and that sort of product. But you'd have to be silly to sit here and say that you wouldn't want to see, MJF go head to head with. I know he had a feud with CM Punk over there in AEW, but those two on the mic, MJF and Seth Rollins, Tony Storm, the way that she has transformed herself, Darby Allin could be a shot in the arm with what a risk taker he is. Hangman Page, there's just a ton of AEW talent over there. You got the Kenny Omegas. You just have so many different styles happening, and it's just, yeah, it's hard to recapture that vibe from almost kind of everything that we talked about, right? Because you can get all the things on the internet. It's not destination TV. AEW doesn't. I think they do have a video game, but it's not as prominent. Like every AEW is just, it just feels a step behind.
Yeah, it's WWE is with TNA with AAA. It's like almost gaining more and more steam that way. That would have been a
Yeah.
perfect. I think AEW tried it with TNA, where they kind of had that crossover, and I thought that was a really good idea at the time to kind of showcase
Yeah.
more guys. But now it's like you're always going to be B to WWE. So at this point, like maybe best case scenario, you have a once a year like dream card where you get to fight WWE superstars. That maybe could be in the works
Mhm.
a couple years down the road. I just don't know if right place, right time. I don't think AEW is in there with WWE at the state.
No, no, and it's so weird, right? Because it's kind of in the same way that people view America as being old, and it's like relative to the rest of the world, America is not old. Well,
Right.
relative to pro wrestling, AEW is also not old. They're still a very, very young company. I think the difference with AEW right now is just that they lack true direction from Tony Khan, and I'm not trying to speak ill, but there was literally a tweet that went out about one of their wrestlers. She had went back, or she had gotten a new theme song. Tony Khan sees the feedback in the middle of the show, like literally on Twitter, and then switches her theme back after the match, like in the same night, in the same show, which I get responsive, but you can't be that knee jerk to everything,
Yeah.
every little bicker from the crowd. That's not direction. That's not even believing in the direction that you just put out there in front of everybody.
Well, and that's kind of to a point what Vince McMahon was kind of notorious for most recently, was just that the attention span or the short term, like split decision. That's not how you build a foundation. But I do think I do want to give a shout out to AEW because, like you said, they have built quite a bit of homegrown talent. Tony Khan does do some really cool stuff with pay-per-view themed, like match quality is really good. I love that sometimes they'll bring in, let somebody have either a Metallica song or a certain AC/DC song, something that really adds to that big match feel. And I props to them, but that, like I said, not knocking AEW. I just think you're just kind of that tier below. Kind of reminds me of TNA, back in the day where they had great matches, great wrestling. They kind of had their own style, which was really cool. And it's just not on that level.
Yeah, and they've got the trios title, so they got like tag teams of 3 essentially. So you got these 3-on-3 matches. I don't know, just from what I've read with folks in AEW, it kind of lacks maybe the attention that it should get, a la the actual WWE tag team division. But I do think it's a cool concept. The same way that the TNA had the 6-sided ring for a while, and they've got those X division matches. Things like that make them stand out and make them unique, I think, are fun. I like the entrance ramp where they have, 2 different tunnels coming out. So I like a lot of the presentation things that AEW is doing. I just don't think they're direct one-to-one competition the way that WCW was there for a while with WWE.
Yeah, which is fine. But it's nice to have that alternative if you do want something different, which a lot of wrestling fans do. And it is kind of cool to be able to check out AEW and see what they're doing over there. There's a lot of big time moments just in the last couple of years I can think of. And just sometimes it's the signing, sometimes it's the matches, sometimes it's a promo. And I mean, they do have a lot of great talent. So it should be interesting to see their trajectory for the future.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's going to lock us up for tonight, Matty. Saturday, June the 7th is going to be Money in the Bank. So I believe next week that leaves us with a Money in the Bank preview show, does it not? Let me.
That's crazy. So it's like we just start rolling, baby. It's crazy how fast wrestling goes. Like with all these other.
That's a lie. That's a lie. We got 2 weeks. We got one show in between. And then 2 weeks from now, we'll have a Money in the Bank preview show. We'll be giving out predictions and all of that good jazz. Next week, Matty, I don't know. we'll throw something. We'll have another good topic, another good WrestleMats locked and loaded, ready to go.
That's right, baby. WrestleMats on all your platforms. Put them in the comments. Any ideas for stuff you want to cover? Nostalgia. We could dive into so many different things when it comes to pro wrestling. That's what makes us fans, is how much we love this stuff. As Vince would say, that's good shit.
Well, next week, Matty, I will be back to my my regular abode, hopefully with my regular internet and in my element a little bit more. Ready to go. Like you said, another edition of WrestleMats in the books here. You can find us on any of the social platforms at WrestleMats, Facebook, YouTube, Twitch. Every Tuesday night between 10 and 10:30 is when we're trying to go live. So feel free to join us there at WrestleMats or WrestleMats Pod on Twitch. I'm Matt Kelly. He's Matty Reiser. We're WrestleMats. See y'all next time.